The rain has been so heavy, it's running off fairly quickly. That's going to cause some flash flooding across parts of the area. This is actually a flash flood warning that includes Lewis, Adams, and parts of Pike and Scioto counties. That's going to run until 7:30 tonight. It's going to take a while for some of that water to actually get out of the area. But when you see high water, try to avoid driving or walking through it, because even if it's a road that you've known for years, you know it like the back of your hand. You've driven it 1,000 times. But what you may not know is that under the rushing water, there may have been a pothole that opens up that's in some cases even big enough to cause damage to your car, or the water is deep enough that it can float your car. You might not know that until you actually get into it. We've seen a lot of that happening in parts of the Atlanta area where people are trying to drive through this and then suddenly their cars start to float. So when there's a flash flood warning, avoid those areas if at all possible. Don't walk or drive through floodwaters because you don't know what's under the water. Turn around, don't drown is the easy way to remember that. If you live near a creek or stream, now is the time to move to higher ground if that's an option for you, because that water can come up very, very quickly and can be very dangerous. Now, all of this is also in the midst of tornado warnings in parts of Pike, Scioto, and Ross counties. Bob Kendrick has joined us now. Bob, did you have a question?
Well, I guess the big question here right now is how much longer is this going to last for the heavy, heavy stuff?
So the heaviest rain is now coming through, and let me widen out so you can see where some of that is. Some of the heaviest rain is where that flash flood warning is at the moment. But even here in Columbus, very heavy rain coming down, and I can put a scan on that to give you an idea of how much, how fast. Let's get into this to here. Let's see what the rain rate is on that. So it's about 600ths per hour. I think it's actually going to be more than that, but that's what radar is suggesting at the moment. I think there are plenty of places where you're going to find it's more like a ½ inch or even an inch per hour, depending on whether you get into some of these downpours that are embedded in some of that. This is going to go on for at least another hour, potentially even more than that, as these storms rotate through here. The biggest danger, though, right now is still in south central Ohio for two different areas, and that's all going to be part of Ross, Pike, and Scioto counties, because most of that area is already covered by a flash flood warning, and we also have the tornado warnings. That's going to cover Piketon and Waverly on up into Ross County near Chillicothe. Bob?
Straight line winds.
Straight line winds are also going to be a problem with this. So we've already had wind gusts this afternoon of 40 to 50 miles per hour. Some of those in Cincinnati closer to 55 miles per hour. Columbus has had several mid 40 range. So there have been a lot of very gusty winds already this afternoon. Straight line winds, but those can still bring down tree limbs and cause damage as those tree limbs fall on power lines and houses. If the power lines come down, always the advice is to avoid being anywhere near that. Try to stay away from downed power lines. You don't know whether they're energized. If they're still energized, obviously they're exceedingly dangerous, and you want to give crews enough space to get in there and try to take care of it. And they're going to be busy. We've already seen a lot of crews from our area heading out of town, so the crews that are left here are going to have to scramble to try to keep up with some of this that's happening right now. The tornado warning that was in part of Scioto County has been allowed to expire at this point. We're still keeping an eye on this tornado warning till 4:30 today that includes the Chillicothe area and points south from about the border with down toward Waverly, even all the way up into Chillicothe as this storm continues to move through the area. There's been some hail, at least sighted on radar with this as well, but it's the potential for tornadoes that's really going to be the biggest concern in all of this. Here's the warning. Let me zoom down in on this a little more. You see where we've got this little pocket right through here. Some of this is strong enough and may have just enough spin in the atmosphere that it could generate a tornado. Now, there is some positive news in this, and that is that so far it's radar indicated, which means we haven't had reports of it being on the ground yet, and radar hasn't sighted a debris ball. So that means it's mainly in the cloud, but that doesn't mean we're safe. What it means is it's sighted on radar, it does have the potential to come to the ground, and that's when it becomes a full-fledged tornado. But rotation is happening in the clouds right now, south of Chillicothe, just east of 23. A little closer look at where we are here. So there's Huntington School, Summit Hill. There's Masseyville. In Masseyville, you get the pretty frequent flooding there, not far from 104. Keep an eye on some of those, the usual areas where you get some flooding. You may have some more of that along with all of this. But east of 23, over here towards 772, some very heavy rain and the potential for some rotation happening in there as well. We're going to zoom back out and keep an eye on a wider view so that we can see if more of this is issued. So parts of Jackson County now under a tornado warning. That is going to be for this part of the storm. So the way things are tracking right now, what you see here in Jackson County could end up sliding up here into parts of Pike and then Ross counties. So that's what kind of watching it upstream and how it tracks through the area. It's all sort of spinning around this direction. So that is likely to also track then into parts of Pike County. But brand new tornado warning there that does include part of Jackson County and a little bit of Vinton County. For populated areas a little south of Columbus, Chillicothe and Waverly are in line for this, plus this batch of very heavy rain is going to move across Route 50 in about the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. And this is the one that may have just enough rotation in it that it's triggered that potential for the tornado. So radar indicates there is turning in the clouds. There's turning for this whole system. This is the same thing that came ashore in Florida last night. It has raced all the way up through the eastern third of the country to our part of the country. So now we're dealing with what's left of Helene. It's still a powerful storm, and that is what's generating this very heavy rain and the potential this afternoon for some tornadoes. Let me look at the Columbus area real quick, give you a sense of what's happening in the city right now. Very heavy rain moving through parts of Pickerington and Violet Town. Asheville all the way up into the southern part of the county. Some very heavy rain there. Downtown getting a significant soaking. Some of these areas may have some localized flooding. It's coming down really fast, and some of the ground has been able to soak up what's happened in the last day or two, but you're still going to get some runoff from this. And so these are some potential very heavy rain showers that are at the very least going to cause some issues on the roads with ponding, and as people are driving on the highways especially, you might end up doing some hydroplaning. So slowing down would probably be your best option with what's on the roads tonight. Again, tornado warnings are in effect for parts of Ross and Pike counties, at least for the next, where are we? It's 4:20, so at least for another 10 minutes or so. If this stops showing signs of rotation, the National Weather Service will allow that tornado warning to expire. But for now, it's time to be in your safe space because, especially south of Chillicothe, there's a pretty good storm happening there that has the potential of some rotation. The area that we've been watching the most has been in southern Ohio, and that's where it's closest to what's happening with the center of circulation. What's left of Helene is still a big low pressure center. It's in Kentucky right now. All of this is twisting around that. Today is an alert day. And that's because of what's left of Helene. That's what's been pushing through here, and that is also what has been creating the gusty winds that we've had all day today. So it's not just this potential for tornadoes, it's also the straight line winds that are happening out there just all by themselves because of this storm. So gusty winds, 50 plus miles an hour, that by itself, even without rotation, is enough to do some damage. Isolated power outages have already been reported in some parts of central Ohio. where you have the potential for tornadoes. You could get even more of that, of course. And then the driving challenges with this are kind of significant for high-profile vehicles. If you're trying to drive a semi in this and the wind is bashing the side of the truck, it makes it really hard to keep it in the lane. And there are lots of downpours out there now as well, and those downpours have the potential to cause some flooding. In south central Ohio, flash flooding is already a good possibility because of the heavy rain that's already happened and is causing some of that to collect, and we end up with flooding. Here's another look at radar so you get a sense of how big this storm is. There it is, pretty much covering all of central and southern Ohio. The farther north you go, the farther you get away from that circulation. So what's left of Helene has a pretty tight little center, and outside of that, the farther you go, the less severe weather you'll have. So farther north is still wet, but it's not as gusty and the rain is not as heavy. But tornado warnings are in effect for parts of the Chillicothe area and south into Ross and Pike counties for at least the next few minutes as we watch this rotation move through. This may not be the end of it during the night tonight. This is going to be with us for at least the next few hours. And the strongest winds, straight line winds, mind you, the strongest straight line winds around this storm are likely to still happen between now and about 8 o'clock tonight. There are wind advisories and high wind warnings in effect for a lot of southern and southwestern Ohio. Because of that, we are still going to have to keep a close eye on things. The potential for power outages is real, and that is likely to continue into at least the early evening. The heaviest rain will start to taper off later this evening, and then tomorrow and Sunday, just some scattered showers, and the wind won't be as strong either. So here's our tornado warning. We're going to get down here on this. Meteorologist Sarah Converse has joined us. Welcome back.
Hi.
Trying to keep an eye on these storms as well. So in Ross County right now, you see where we have this little batch of rain here that may have a little bit of circulation around it. There's also this potential just to the east of Waverly that also may develop a little bit of that. It's been a little difficult to see it on the actual velocity readings, but